I hope you can hear me. If you're not able to hear me, please let me know. Um, this is not a tech savvy person you're looking at here, so just let me know and I'll get somebody to fix it. So okay. Um, it's kind of hard to articulate what it is I want to talk about today, which um, I'm not going to avoid it. I'm going to go ahead and plow through it and hope you all will help me or at least bear with me. I'm going to start with the most difficult thing for me that has been in terms of studying the Dharma with the Genjo Koan and Dogen, my friend Dogen. Um, and I'm reading from Shohaku Okamura's translation of the Genjo Koan. There's a particular part, he has, in this translation, they're numbered. These paragraphs are numbered. And so I'm starting with paragraph 10, somewhere in the middle, or actually, yeah, it's kind of in the middle of the Genjo Koan. See if I can see it. When the Dharma has not yet fully penetrated body and mind, one thinks one is already filled with it. When the Dharma fills body and mind, one thinks something is still lacking. For example, when we sail a boat into the ocean beyond sight of land and our eyes scan the horizon in the four directions, it simply looks like a circle. No other shape appears. This great ocean, however, is neither round nor square. It has inexhaustible characteristics. To a fish, it looks like a palace. To a heavenly king, a jeweled necklace. To us, as far as our eyes can see, it looks like a circle. All the myriad things are like this. Within the dusty world and beyond, there are innumerable aspects and characteristics. We only see or grasp as far as the power of our eye of study and practice can see. When we listen to the reality of myriad things, we must know that there are inexhaustible characteristics in both ocean and mountains, and there are many other worlds in the four directions. This is true not only in the external world, but also right under our feet, or within a single drop of water. It goes on in number 11. When a fish swims, no matter how far it swims, it doesn't reach the end of the water. When a bird flies, no matter how high it flies, it cannot reach the end of the sky. When the bird's need or the fish's need is great, the range is large. When the need is small, the range is small. In this way, each fish and each bird uses the whole of space and vigorously acts in every place. However, if a bird departs from the sky or a fish leaves the water, it immediately dies. We should know that for a fish, water is life. For a bird, sky is life. A bird is life, a fish is life, life is a bird, life is a fish, and we should go beyond this. There is practice enlightenment. This is the way of living beings. So life is a bird and life is a fish, and life is a body in a boat on the water. I read something, there's a new translation that Bhikkhu Bodhi has out, and just to paraphrase something that he said in that introduction to that book, that the Buddha's first teaching, he didn't start with Dharma 101. The first teaching that we know of as the Four Noble Truths was really, the end thesis, that was the most advanced of all the teachings. And that everything else that comes after is somehow reaching for it, and somehow trying to explain it, trying to codify it in some way that we can understand. And always, if we think about what that first teaching is about, that teaching, is that we're the origin of our suffering. That suffering comes from the ignorance and delusion that somehow the world can be made permanent. Our resistance, our reluctance to understand impermanence, and also our reluctance to understand that interdependence. That's we say these things because, and because they're in these, we have these words and terms and stuff, there's a sort of intellectual understanding of it. But always the practice, in the practice, I'm constantly, and I think everyone is, constantly running up against that lack of understanding, that delusion. He says that, my brain skits. When the Dharma is not yet fully penetrated, body and mind thinks one is already filled with it. One delusion. When the Dharma fills body and mind, one thinks something is still lacking. Still sounds like delusion. Something to be careful of. That image of the person in a boat in the middle of the ocean with nothing else around, not able to see land, only the horizon. He describes it as a circle. I've never really been out, to be honest, on a boat in the middle of the ocean to see that sight. I've only ever crossed an ocean in an airplane, so I don't even know that image that he's describing. But to be out on the ocean and see only the circle of yourself and the waves and boat. In my mind, that's a picture of our limitation, or sort of a metaphor of our limitation. We see ourselves in the relative world because that's how our minds work. That's how our bodies work. The limits of seeing just being this body floating in a boat on the ocean. And then this mind, body, boat, and ocean are separate. That's a delusion. And that the limit of the world is that circle. That's all these tired eyes, can experience. All this mind can really encompass. And even if I know that there is more beyond that the edges of that circle, in some intellectual space, I know that something exists beyond that. And even below me in the ocean, when I'm sitting in that boat, my ego, all I can see is that limit. And I think that's what we're struggling with. always in practice. The Dharma is immense. It's this vast thing. I don't even want to call it a thing. It's vast. Dharma is vast. It encompasses all. It is all. It's sitting right here. And it's way somewhere far away that I can't even see, that I might not have even heard of. How do I experience that beyond my intellect? How do I know that's true? When I have to walk through this relative world in my little, or paddle through this relative world in my little boat. How do I reach that? How do I become that, find that Buddha awareness that allows me to truly understand impermanence, to truly understand interdependence? That's what this practice is about. And I have very great difficulty with that, even though I talk about it all the time. It's that koan that we have, all of us. Being in that little boat is also like being in my memory. It's fading fast. Being here and doing practice and doing zazen, but not even just being here, being in my room doing zazen every morning. And then getting up, getting in my boat, driving to work, and the limits, of my understanding of Dharma, running into that all day long at work. In a sense, we kind of talk about it in terms of how do I carry the Dharma into my life? How do I, find Buddha nature, or, at least act like I have some kind of, understand my Buddha nature when I get to work? How do I make this part of my everyday life? Because intellectually, I know that I am a fish in the sea, and I'm not, and the Dharma is all around me, always, and that I am part of that sea. But when I get out there and there's a whole bunch of people in boats ramming my boat, all I can see is me. And I can't apply that Dharma. How do I get past that to apply that Dharma to the rest of the world so that I don't see them as separate, as enemies, as different, as competition, as whatever I, choose in my brain, whatever delusion I choose to impose upon the myriad beings and the earth. That's a difficulty. And run into that failure, and I'm sure out there people understand what I'm talking about. Run into that failure every day. And what I'm really struggling to do in my own practice these days, I'm not going to blame COVID because I've always had this issue, but it's very hard, especially since COVID, to get out of your head, to get out of your boat. I'm out here on this ocean and I'm paddling away, and I can see the ocean as my enemy, or the ocean as my support, or the ocean as this or that, and I can see the boat as my vehicle, or whatever. And that's a relative idea, I'm not going to sit out on the ocean forever. If I'm going to stay alive, if I'm going to preserve this body, I'm not just going to sit there in the boat and float. I could, And that's good too. You know. But in this world, I want to get somewhere. I want to be somewhere, or I have something that I have to do, you know, because that's how the world is. We have to live in this world. Nothing in the Dharma says you should just lay there and die, you know, because that's not the Dharma either. You know, this energy is given here for not necessarily purpose, but it sustains not just this small self, but it sustains the world as well. Whatever energy I put out there, however, in whatever form I do. So if I row in my little boat, you know, and keep rowing until I can row no more, or until I finally run into that land, or until I end up someplace else, you know, I didn't expect. That's the energy. But what I do is I sit in that boat and I panic about where am I going? How long is it going to take to get there? You know, oh, it's so wet out here. You know, the ocean waves are pushing me in a direction that I don't want to go, and I have to struggle against those waves. Or I don't struggle against the waves and I worry about, you know, where the ocean is going to take me. And I see nothing beyond that boat. And I don't see myself as part of that ocean. Here's an intellectual idea. Like I said, we fly everywhere nowadays. We don't, you know, we when we go someplace that's a long distance away, we don't even touch the earth, but we touch the earth over here and then we touch it over there. But think about this. There is no place on the earth that is not connected. Intellectual idea. Just play with me for a minute. There is no place that is not connected by land or sea or by any kind of physical place on earth. You know, there might be, you know, some Shangri-La somewhere where there's a floating mountain in the sky. I don't know, whatever. But in real terms, every place I stand is connected. And I had this sense when I was traveling a lot, you know, and it's kind of an idea that to make myself feel better, you know, if I was homesick or in a place that was uncomfortable or something. No matter where I'm standing, I am attached to whatever I think is home. So what is home? In places, you know, on this earth, you know, there are people who look very different than I do, speak a different language, who have different ideas about how to act or move, deal with each other. And that's all, you know, what it is. And we draw lines on maps and screens and say this place is this place and this place is that place. Erase the lines and what place is what. What difference does that make? And in the relative terms, in the relative world, we have to pay attention to those imaginary lines. And we have to pay attention to the strange clothing and strange cultural things and ideas. But just to take language for a minute, regardless of what language you speak, regardless of how you're dressed, what color your skin is, somewhere in that language is a way to express love. Somewhere in that language, people speak of anger and fear. Somewhere in that language, somehow it translates to family, together. I don't think there's any language, when you come down to the basic things of Dharma, caring, compassion, delusion. There's a word for all of that in every language. Translations can be off, because some languages, like German, get really into it and get real specific, But even in those specific, however specific or vague, Japanese can be very vague compared to some others. We understand what that is. So what's separate? What's different? How is it that I can build this little boat and be by myself when I'm not? No matter how far away you are from me. And we realize that, that relative practical things that we have to do on earth to live or whatever are not really the reality. And yet we're all seeking the same thing, but building these boxes and these boats. And sometimes ramming each other with it when it's all the same ocean. How do I get out of that boat? How do I just, instead of floating on that ocean, recognize that I am that ocean? It says where? I'm not good at holding quotes in my brain. This is not only true, this is true not only, let's see. This is true not only in the external world, but also right under our feet or within a single drop of water. Not only in the external world, but then he says something about the external world, about being under our feet and a single drop of water. Well, if a single drop of water holds everything, is everything, that single body in the boat is everything too, even though I don't feel like I am, even though I feel separate and alone. And I think, Zazen, what did I want to say? There's a part of the Fukan Zazenki which says, hold on a minute, let me think, because I'm not going to be able to quote it. As many times as I've said the Fukan Zazenki, the light that shines inwardly to illuminate the self. And I can't help it. I know this is just a little dance that I do in my brain with my hand, whatever it is. To sit zazen, to seek and touch that light that shines inwardly. And something about the way he's put that makes me see inwardly to illuminate the self. Because self is not this limited thing. Self is not a boat on the ocean. It is the ocean. So when you sit zazen, to sit zazen is not just to enlighten this. And this is the Dharma as it's, taught. And some, I guess, not everybody has the same interpretation of the Dharma, but I think, and I may be wrong, to sit zazen is not only to enlighten this body or the thing that, this temporary manifestation of energy, it's here for, 50 to 100 years, 1 to 100 years, whatever. It illuminates to become enlightenment for that, this being, this moment, enlightens all. Drop of water. So I don't know what else I want to say about that. Not yet. But this is kind of what I've been playing with. And I admittedly I'm playing it with it up here, trying to bring it into this body and eventually through this body out into the ocean. The paddling of this boat. So I don't know if that made any sense at all, but that is my question for the day. As I said in the beginning, Bhikkhu Bodhi says that lesson, Buddha didn't start with the remedial. It begins with, the most difficult thing to understand about this practice and about Dharma. Not because we can't find words to kind of approximate it, because it's very hard to embody it. And more, and I sometimes get a little fundamentalist about this. Forgive me. I keep saying that the danger that we have in Western Zen is that we take everything and put it in a book before we even really get it, taste it. It has to be codified in some way and spelled out. But at the same, what really can go missing. Not in everyone, because I think that we as Western people have every potential to grasp this as anyone else in the world. But culturally, we try to package everything. Even when we say we're not packaging it, it's covered with cellophane somehow. It's just how we are. To get it out of my head and into, just get it out of my head and to just be it, embody it. We forget the physical part of this practice, that this is, the heart mind, this is body mind practice. Everything in Dogen, there's lots of words that actually say that, but somehow it always ends up in here. So I think that's what I'm fumbling around with myself these days and trying to figure out some way to embody it, to pull my heart into it. I might talk later a little bit about that. But at the same time, doing these talks, I don't know, doing these talks makes me do the practical thing that we have to do when we're working together. And that's why Zazen is so important, to shut up, sit down, that was our little joke for a while. It's not a joke. Shut the hell up and sit down. But I'm going to be quiet because I can go on forever, as you know. Because my brain is that neon sign. It's always going. So I'm going to stop there and open up to comments and questions and whatever we need to talk about today. Let me turn this off. And if we need to change the mic so that everybody can be heard,
You could plug it into your computer. I think that would work.
Maybe.
You gotta bring it up onto your mic.
It has,
The arrow under your mic.
Let's see if this computer, I've not plugged did I plug that into this before? We can try it. You want to unplug it in the back? Do you see?
But make sure have to, once it's plugged in, you have to bring it up under your mic.
Yeah. Well, hopefully my computer can find it.
I can hear Teijo rather well.
You can hear Teijo?
Yes.
Could you say something from way over there?
Can you hear me from this side of the room?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can? Okay. You want to try it this way for a minute? Just leave
Sure.
it for now. Let's not bother too much with all that. This tech stuff gets so distracting. It's not crazy. But okay. So if anybody has any questions, so long as you can hear me, and hear everybody else, and I guess still see everybody, please go ahead. Anne, can you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
You said, you mentioned energy a few times. You talked initially about it kind of being, I don't want to say ours, but being present, not just to sustain ourselves, which you later called, like you said something about we're temporary manifestations of energy. You said that. But it's not just to keep us pedaling through our lives. But you mentioned briefly something about, of course, it can also have an effect in the wider Dharma. I just wondered if you could talk about that a little more.
How to talk about that? Well, if you go basically from what Dogen, the Buddha, and places have said, that our zazen affects the world, our effort affects the world, and where do we put that effort? I can't define that for anyone. I don't really know how I would even express that. But here I am, and I am in the world, and whatever I do is an expression of well, it's energy, and it's also an expression of I don't know what to call it. It's going to affect the world in some way. And I'm not going to say the butterfly effect because that's kind of cute and whatever, and it's not quite true. But regardless of what I do, what I put out into the world is going to affect somebody in some way, whether I see them or not. Brush past someone on the subway, and several people have COVID. It's almost as simple as that. But it's also, when you put out something positive into the world, and manifest something in a room with people that you hope is good, and whatever they take from that goes out into the world. So that's why it's important. Right speech is important. Right thought is important. That's the Eightfold Path. How we affect the myriad beings around us. So I'm calling this a temporary energy because, it's going to dissipate at some point, and this body that you see, or this voice that you hear, the energy that flows in and out of here. Wherever I take it, I don't think it's useful to define it, really, because if that's ignoring, the change. That's ignoring the. Why am I losing my words? I just said the word a few minutes ago. That's ignoring the fact that this is not permanent. It's ignoring impermanence. So it's not something that I would choose to define anyway. It's just what's here. I think I might have said not simply just this energy or this body or whatever, this moment. I'm just a moment. This moment, and then here I am in this other moment, So it's that, it's a very fluid thing in my mind. I don't know, so I don't know how to express it. And maybe I'm not expressing it very well, but I'm not sure I can answer your question well. But thank you.
Chimyo. Can y'all hear me?
Genjo. I'm going to say, I'm keep calling you Genjo. Okay.
You just mentioned the Eightfold Path and right speech and all the right things. How do we know if how do we know that we're following that? How do we know what we're doing, but like speaking, thinking, livelihood, how do we know that it's right?
I don't know sometimes that we do, that we do or that we can. Again, there's these boxes that we want to put everything in. Right speech, right thought. You know, right is and right is that word that kind of skews the meaning for me anyway. And a lot of people don't like to use the word right. Some people like to use the word wholesome, but that skews it a little bit too, because it makes it fit into a box of what you think is wholesome. You know. But again, it comes with awareness, I think, and being in that particular moment to, and here's another word, to say the appropriate word or not say it, or to do the right action or do the appropriate action for that moment and this, set of circumstances. And in order to do that, you have to have to be you have to let go of what you expect to happen or what you expect to be the outcome, because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. I tell this story all the time of being on a street corner and having someone ask me for money, asked me specifically for $15 so they could get a hotel. And I, without thinking, I opened my purse on a street corner and gave them $15 and kept walking. I don't know what happened to that $15. Busybody lady over here wants to tell me, oh, they've been standing there all this time asking people for money. They just want to buy drugs. She doesn't know what happened to my money. We can guess, we can make all kinds of assumptions and all that kind of stuff. But in that moment, what was that moment where I handed over that money without expectation, with intention being simply a response to someone who needed help, whatever kind of help they thought they needed? Where did that go? I don't know. It was a cold night. Anything could have happened. That cold night, they could have found that hotel room with that $15. That cold night, they could have killed themselves with an overdose. That cold night, all these expectations and ideas. That cold night, or that one moment. I get teared up with this because some part of me is still wanting my $15, still calling it my $15. That's a failure. You can't know. Or that, because anything could have changed in that moment. You know? So it has to kind of start, the right or whatever, has to start with some awareness that you are not going to, things are not necessarily going to come out in your plan because there is no plan. Nobody ever says to me that in that moment, even if that guy decided that he was planning on buying drugs, his plan could have fallen apart too. And something else could have happened. You know? So if my intention is to show kindness, embody kindness, maybe that touches off something in that person, I show it too. Or not, you know. And maybe not in that particular time. Maybe next time, you know. Because I'm not the arbiter of what the world should be. I'm not alone in who should care for who and be this, right? So that's ego. But maybe my act of kindness isn't what turned him around if he needed turning around. That's an assumption that he needed turning around. But if he did need turning around, maybe mine was one little nudge, and the next person's is another, you know? So I can't tell you, and you don't know, you will never know if that action is going to do what you want in the world. But the good of the world, quote unquote good, the care of the world doesn't come from withholding it because you're not sure. Didn't answer that question either. I'm sorry. I don't know. I think it's getting old. That is not, I'm not old, but you know, watching time that makes me get all verklempt about this stuff because I didn't used to. And I'm hoping that it's a sign of getting out of my head. So I'm gonna cry as much as I want to, so y'all can just laugh at me if you want. Whatever you think, go ahead. But really, we need to feel this.
See how we affect each other.
So, excuse me.
Just about your own.
I'm sorry if I talk too much. See, I still talk too much. Were there any other questions, Lorna?
I think it's your whole point was to not withhold it.
To not withhold.
It's not to withhold it, but to give it. And that's with your tears or with your money or with your sitting is giving to the world. So keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
Can't help it. Yeah. The precepts say, don't withhold the Dharma. Now you can define the Dharma as some kind of book that you're going to pass on or whatever, or you can just freaking do it. So thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry to take up so much time. But,
That's exactly quickly.
and I'm sorry if my talk is kind of scattered because you see, whatever. But
So we usually do a closing chant. I can't remember which one though.
Okay. Who's leading this? Okay. Okay.
May the merit of this penetrating to each thing in all places, so that we and every sentient being together may realize the Buddha way.
Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Desire is inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to master them.
The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Desires are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The Dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Dharma way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Desires are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The Dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it.